right, let's talk about something that drives pretty much every coffee lover crazy: getting that perfect, silky milk foam at home. Today, we are going to demystify the entire process, looking at the science behind it. Let's dive in. You know exactly what I'm talking about, right? You see the barista at your local coffee shop whip up this incredible velvety foam, and it looks so easy. But then you get home, and it's just, well, it's either a bubbly mess or just sad hot milk. So why is that perfect microfoam so incredibly hard to nail down? Well, that's what we're here to figure out. To really crack this code, we have to start with the mystery of foam itself. I mean, what is actually physically happening inside that metal pitcher when you hit the milk with a blast of steam? We're going to tackle three big questions. First up, what's the real science behind the frothing process? Second, and this is a big one, why does that beautiful foam you worked so hard for just collapse and disappear? And finally, why is it that skim milk and whole milk act in completely different ways? Okay, so the first clue to solving this whole mystery isn't in your fancy espresso machine. Nope, it's right there, inside the milk carton itself. To understand foam, we first have to understand what milk is actually made of. So if you look at it, milk is, believe it or not, mostly water, like 87%. The rest is a mix of things like lactose, that's the sugar that gives it that hint of sweetness, some minerals, and then our two main characters for today, protein and fat. And it's in those tiny little percentages where all the foam-making magic happens. That's right. If you forget everything else for just a minute, the entire story of milk foam comes down to this really delicate dance happening between just two things: protein and fat. These two are the key players that will either build your beautiful latte or completely break it. So, we've got our ingredients, right? The protein, the fat. Now it's time to bring in the action. Let's look at what happens when science, in the form of a powerful steam wand, steps onto the scene and completely changes the game. You know, frothing is really a two-for-one deal. That steam wand is doing two critical things at the exact same time. First, it's literally injecting tiny pockets of air into the milk, creating bubbles. And second, it's heating it up, fast. And that heat is what triggers a really important chemical reaction. Let's zero in on our first hero, protein. So in cold milk, the proteins are just these tiny, tightly wound up little balls, kind of floating around, just minding their own business. But the second you hit them with heat from that steam wand, everything changes. Those little protein bundles start to unwind. They unfold and stretch out. And now they're unstable, and they are desperately looking for something to grab onto. And what do we just inject into the milk? A whole lot of air bubbles. And this is the absolute core of how foam is made. See, every protein has two sides. One side loves water, it's hydrophilic, but the other side hates water, it's hydrophobic. So that water-hating side completely panics and latches onto the only thing around that isn't water, the air bubbles. It basically forms this perfect protective protein shield around every single bubble, trapping the air inside and making the foam stable. But here's the catch. The very same heat that helps create this amazing structure can also be its greatest enemy. There's a point of no return, a temperature that, if you cross it, spells disaster for your foam. And that magic number is 75 degrees Celsius, which is about 165 Fahrenheit. This is the absolute red line. Most baristas know this by touch. It's that exact moment when the pitcher gets a little too hot to hold comfortably. Because if you push past that 75-degree mark, those delicate protein shields that are holding your foam together, they literally just break apart. They can't hold the air anymore, the bubbles pop, and your beautiful foam collapses right back into liquid. So yeah, if your foam ever just vanishes, you probably overheated. Okay, so protein builds the structure. Got it. But what about our other player, fat? Is fat helping us out here, or is it getting in the way? Well, it turns out it's a little more complicated. Fat is kind of both a friend and a foe. Let's compare. With non-fat milk, there's nothing competing with the proteins. They can just grab onto all the air bubbles they want, which creates a ton of really stiff, stable foam. The only problem? The texture can feel kind of dry and bubbly, almost like a meringue. But with full-fat milk, the fat molecules actually get in the way. They compete with the air for the protein's attention. This actually makes the foam a bit less stable, so you get less of it. But, and this is a big but, the fat gives you that rich, creamy, velvety texture and flavor that we all want in a truly great latte. So that's the big trade-off. Think of it this way. Protein is the architect, building the actual structure of the foam. But fat is the interior designer, giving it that luxurious feel and amazing flavor. The absolute best lattes find that perfect harmony between the two. So now that we actually get the science, how do we put it into practice? Let's walk through the foolproof, step-by-step method for making an amazing latte using everything we just learned. First, and this is crucial, always start with very cold milk. That gives you more time to froth before you hit that danger zone temperature. Place the steam wand just below the surface, a little off-center. You want to hear a gentle hissing sound. That's air being injected. Once the pitcher feels like it's about room temperature, plunge the wand deeper into the milk. This stops adding air and starts mixing everything together. You keep going until the pitcher is just too hot to comfortably hold, and then you stop. Immediately. A final swirl and a good tap on the counter gets rid of any big bubbles and leaves you with this beautiful, glossy milk. And that step where you plunge the wand deeper, it's so important. By creating that vortex, that little whirlpool, you're not just heating the milk anymore. You are folding all of that light, amazing microfoam back into the liquid milk. That's the secret. That's what turns it from just foam on top of milk into one single, silky, perfectly blended liquid, the kind that's perfect for latte art. So there you have it. It's not some kind of dark art or magic, it's just science. It's all about that delicate balance between protein, fat, and just the right amount of heat. The science is yours now. So the only question left is, are you ready to go make your first perfect latte?